Welcome to Stories Untold. I am Pulem Molebatsi with you for the next half an hour on this week's installment of Stories Untold, the home of good news. Today, once again, we embark on an activism journey, but also creating awareness specifically on albinism. It is Albinism Awareness Month in South Africa, so we follow change makers, activists, and individuals who are radical thinkers and are leading their activism space. We look at the journey of mothers who are activists in their own right. We look at artists who are using social media as a form and a tool of activism. And most importantly, we look at music, one of the most unifying languages that has been used from the past until now as a form of activism. It's our journey for the next half an hour. So sit back, relax, and allow us to entertain and inform you.
This week, the city of Tshwane saw mothers from all around the country come together and discuss how better to support themselves and their kids. Mothering and Albinism is an organization set up to establish methods to better support mothers with children who have albinism. One such mother is Tshiruki Timure, an activist who has a son with albinism and has experienced discrimination in her neighborhood. That experience encouraged her to start activism within the albinism space.
I'm a mother of a child with albinism, and I'm an activist also. 2006 I gave birth to Tato, a child with albinism. I knew nothing about albinism, even my family, my relatives, nothing. And then after that, when I gave birth to Mahigeng, so Mahigeng is Mahigeng, so I didn't have that much challenges. There was a time when Tato was turning 1 year, I had to go back to Pampirstad where I'm staying. There was the real world for discrimination and stigma. There was people like they were looking at my son saying, no, this is a child of a white man. Where I was working, they say no, it's because of that lady gave me his son. My husband must check if I didn't give him a handball. And then in my community, like there was something like saying, no, it's because of you were eating on the pot and sitting and on when I like I can cross an person with albinism. I suppose so I didn't do that while I was pregnant. So and then those things man ba hatla ko gae ba kopa moriri wa ngwana ke khata ba kopa dinala tsa ngwana. And then like I was like seriously, and in itsumla yana in depressed wa bona ke tsumla ke re no man, why this thing in seriously in so yeah.
She went to seek help, and that is where she met Sister Susan.
Sister Susie Peterson. Sister Susie Peterson, about no man, after the counseling, about who I read a support group for the provincial because batting persons with albinism, but have a no coach. Then I did that, that advocacy, the door to door, ran sabana, babana in conditional albinism. Can take it a malunga no waka on. Ke batlile the example le ka ena gore le ene o tlhagile ntse le baby nyana, so ke o watla o godile, so le bone ba sabala ba sure because others. I remember the other one saying because of the father is a Nigerian, and then the family saying is because of you sleeping with the wrong tribes. But that is why ngwana yo o ntsenyana. 2013 social development they are recognizer, and then register, and then they baba refund. It's where the lot of work begins. Re tsamaya re ba kreya bana di blasters mo ba ikare bana ba tshoka metsa bidile. Then Rabarashela to our provincial hospital. We do have a good relationship with dermatologists and our clinics. It's our own. I want to know condition bang phone. So na mongwaneng wa ka ne thato, yes, my relatives, my cousins bana ba sa batla go dumela gore ngwana o na le that special ka some things wa bona ha khona go tshameka le bana ba bangwe ko letsatsing, ha khona go tshameka le ba bangwe di swimming pool because swimming pools ka ba tsentse other chemicals tse le go di reacta mo letlalong la ga. I'm working as community development worker ne, and then bana ba because of re tla ba re sokola ka di sunscreen cream ko our local health centers, so ba di create, but most of the time they are sokodisa kere. So ra kopa mo the funding for please assist us with the creams, the relevant skin product tse le goreng di accompany la bana.
One day, while with relatives, her son was left outside with no sun protection and had to be hospitalized. Tshego then decided to start her awareness campaign within her own family.
So there was apologies, but show that remorse for it. They didn't really know. Then I say no, I will start with them and then give those awareness, give her educate, and then it was like that. I'm here to gain more knowledge and to share my work, what I'm doing, the impact that we bring to our persons with albinism, the positive one. How is it informative to them, you know? Yes, and we also looking for them for their assistance to fund the organization, to have more equipment, to have more resources, so that when we do our campaigns, we must be well represented.
We spoke to two key figures from the organization who shared their thoughts on mothers and albinism within the South African context.
At one point, we were meeting with our colleagues from University of Pretoria. Noma Santo was there, Umpo was there, and we were talking about, okay, so we write our academic papers, but what else do we do? And they were so passionate. Civil society was so passionate. They said, no, that's not enough. Academic papers isn't enough. We have to do more, which was true. And it's been really important to learn from mothers, both who have albinism themselves or who have given birth to a child with albinism. In South Africa, we really used the same path in that we worked with civil society. So we worked with people, with organizations that had mothers groups or who had contact with mothers who had albinism. The challenge was the pandemic. So being able to travel, so there was many times we did things virtually rather than in person. So that was a challenge. Mothers who are affected by albinism, their resilience comes about in a community context. They work together, mothers together are strong, and they need the community around them, they need the resources. So it is that resilience comes as walking together, not walking alone.
The birth of a child with albinism, it sets the stage for the enjoyment of rights by persons with albinism. And so if a mother is not supported, not provided the right information, not provided the right support, or has somebody reacting in a stigmatizing way to the birth of their child, this in some ways sets up the child to have barriers to the enjoyment of their rights. What came out of the conversations we had today from the mothers is that a lot of work still needs to be done. Midwives need to be educated, doctors need to be educated, dermatologists need to be educated. And if they're not provided with the information in relation to that, they won't be able to provide that support.
We look at one young woman who's using social media as a form of activism, new age and modern way of activism.
Meet Kamogelo Machaba, a creative director, model, photographer, and fashion enthusiast. Kamogelo has been taking up space on social media with her colorful and bold images celebrating herself. The Stories Untold team got to sit down with her to discuss self-expression, her creative process, and the importance of authenticity in the creative space.
Self-expression to me essentially just means expressing yourself the best way you know how to, through, I guess, different forms that you find along the way. I've always liked the camera, first of all. I've always been interested, and I've actually been approached by a lot of photographers. So I was just like, what is very intriguing about myself? And then I got into modeling, and that's the first thing that I got into initially. I mostly wanted to represent myself and the people that are like me. So as you can see, I've got albinism, which is a condition that affects my skin, hair, and eyes. So I've never seen a lot of models in the industry, and I wanted to essentially like break the mold in the modeling industry. But now another thing is that I'm not as tall and I'm not as like skinny or slim as a lot of models are. So I have this idea that I want to walk on high fashion runways with my height and the curvy body that I have. So that is what inspired me further on to be a model. So yeah, I would say it's a bit of like advocacy in there, but in my own type of way. I love to express myself with pictures because I'm a visual person. I am a visual storyteller. I'm a conceptual artist. So everything that I sort of bring to life comes from my head. So I have vivid visions of what I want to create. So photography is one of those mediums that helps me express what I see in my mind into actual something tangible that people can see and consume. And I also realize that I do actually have an audience. I'm not that weird. There's actually a whole community within social media, and it also helps me to be within the spaces that I need to be to, I guess, influence other people or encourage other people to be more confident or expressive, and also to grow myself and learn a lot and expose myself to new things. We are in an atmosphere where there is a lot of creative people, and nothing really is sometimes original. It's usually inspired by something. So I think being authentic is very important, because yes, you could do something the way maybe you might do it, but because you have your own twist added onto it, then it makes you stand out. It makes you authentic. I feel like it's sort of like a fingerprint. You can't necessarily imitate that, even though we all have fingerprints, but there's just that slight little difference that makes you stand out from the rest. So I think it's very, very important to be visible and authentic, because of the fact that it's a very saturated industry. There's a lot of people that do the same thing. So I'll gather pieces of evidence. Maybe, for example, let's say my theme is purple and I want to create a purple world. I'll start collecting items that are purple that I have around the house, and then start looking for inspiration on Pinterest if they've created something like that or similar to that, and then I'll create a mood board. And then if I need to get something externally, then I'll go and collect stuff, but essentially just to have the mood and the feel. And then after that, then I start to plan and execute maybe the project that I've visualized and put onto paper.
Kamogelo shared some of her tips on gaining confidence, as well as her own experience of having a lack of it.
I think start small. Start with what you have. Don't necessarily focus on what's happening outside of your space and your creative space. I think even in your head, your imagination, start there. I really think that's very important. And then try to find a close circle of people that can relate to you. It starts in the imagination. Being confident in your imagination, then you eventually gain the confidence to be confident outside. So for me, I struggle quite a lot with essentially the confidence part. For the longest time, I felt like I was misunderstood, or there was no space for me to I guess, to vent creatively or to express myself. I felt like there was so many limitations. One might be where you are. I think your surroundings kind of assess that and see if you resonate with it to that extent. If you can't do anything about it, it's very difficult to kind of create from scratch. But I would say maybe start like in your room, in your space, and maybe invite some friends over and try from the little that you have. I think the biggest thing for me has been networking and putting myself out there. So coming out of that shell, that small town, sometimes you kind of need to bite the bullet for what you want. So I think that tenacity to want to find something, that hunger to want to get to a place that you can resonate with, like literally just like, okay, this doesn't fit until you find the spot.
Welcome back. Our journey brings us here and we shift gears slightly different as we focus now on how music can also be used as a tool to spread message of awareness, but also be a catalyst for change. Right now, we venture into a story of one young man who found solace in music, but also is able to articulate himself better through music.
This is Musa Magagula, an inspiring rapper and performing artist. As a person with albinism, Musa hasn't let anything get in the way of his confidence and self-expression. We visited him and his team in their studio to see how music is helping him make a name for himself.
I think it started off from a very young age. I'm sure about grade 1, grade 2 already I could hear like the little details at the back, and I just fell in love with it from the get-go. So I feel like everybody played a role in my life in terms of support, because Ray Jean, for example, he taught me how to like deliver in my music. He taught me how to not only rap what you're saying, but actually feel what you're saying.
Musa shared some of the struggles he's seen and what kind of difference he'd like to make.
For example, I was in a school called Prince of School, you know? So that's a school that caters for albinism, strictly. So a lot of kids would come from far places just to come to the school. You get what I'm saying? But it's because this school is catering for our needs. So people come from Northwest, others would come from Limpopo. Every weekend they have to go home. So it's money, a whole lot of money, a whole lot of traveling. They need sunscreen. I would inspire a lot of kids, especially with our skin condition, because a lot of kids, for example, might be not as confident because, you know how primary was, we tend to diss each other and all of that. So it was really kind of like tough, but yeah, I would just say if they would have to see me, I think I'm trying to inspire and give them hope.
Rorisang Malete is a producer who helped King in his early years to better develop his sound.
I guess we just kind of grew up being around each other and not necessarily getting in touch to say, hey, let's do music or let's get into art. But we were just always able to relate to each other, just genuinely based on the fact that we're expressive people, we're able to communicate and just love what we do. Ultimately, it did come to a point where I was pretty much the only person he could reach out to say, hey, I'd like to do music. I don't really know anyone else out there. He had done some stuff at like some professional studios and everything, but people couldn't really connect to him as an individual and help him to just kind of, get over that fence or that loophole where, he doesn't really know how to express himself over the microphone or how to write lyrics. And then through time, trial and error, we just kind of went back and forth and started working on new projects. We just spent days in the studio just trying to mess up ideas and getting things wrong, and eventually started figuring out the sound that works for him.
Now I'm lucky because I stay alone, so I can write in the house, and do everything in the house. Yeah, pretty much just alone space. I love my alone space, but sometimes I like, calling my friends like Cassidy, because sometimes your idea goes further when you actually pitch it to someone and we actually try to work together and see how we can make it better.
Musa and Donovan Doney, a high school friend and music producer, are currently working on a project together.
In high school, we stayed in a hostel, and me, him, and a mutual friend of ours stayed in one room in matric. Then was when we really started working. I brought my laptop over to school, and then throughout the week after our classes or at night would make beats till the early hours of the morning. So whenever we got the time to do other things besides just schoolwork, we'd always be on that laptop making beats. It was hard to make friends, you know, because kids don't really understand it. So yeah, they didn't get it. So it was hard for me to make friends then. So I was mostly alone at break listening to music. So I started just writing down the lyrics I'd hear from the music I was listening to, and eventually started making my own music. So I'd say just remember where you come from, and wherever you're going, don't forget to always keep your morals and who you are as a person along with you, and take that with you into those other levels of life.
The project is strictly about, you know, us growing up, you know, as albinos, how we became self-aware, you know, more confident, more opinionated. It's more about uplifting us albinos and trying to show the next person like, yo, if I could do it, you could do it too.
I had to be a teacher, I couldn't be part of the students. I had to be a nuisance, most likely ruthless. Mama don't miss me bad, that's why I'ma be just fine. If you just rest those eyes, if you just rest those eyes tonight. I've been on a long way drive, my visions can't sleep at night. If you can ease your mind, I promise I'll be alright, right.
And just like that, we've come to the end of our show, and we've got very important pointers that we would like you to remember as we wrap up our show today, is that each and every person can make a change in their own right. We are all heroes in our own way. And in the matters of activism and also true representation of marginalized groups, it's important that we take the opportunity to learn first, be invested in the subject that you are not familiar with. Change begins with each and every one of you. From myself here on Stories Untold, we are also change makers in our own way. And that brings us to the end of the show. Goodbye, until next time.